Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, with artists, writers, scientists, educators, social scientists, government and nonprofit leaders. We speak with each one to one. Imagine yourself being entrusted with the care and tending of miles and miles of parks, golf courses, lakes, trails, not to mention tennis courses and pools. I'm delighted to welcome Veronica White, the newish Parks and Recreation Commissioner. She's no stranger to our parks. She grew up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Her backyard, Shore Road Park. A lawyer, she was founding director of the city's Center for Economic Opportunity, and she follows a long line of distinguished leaders of the Parks Department, which keeps adding thousands of acres to the system. Welcome.
Thank you.
So your department oversees 29,000 acres of parks, 3,500 employees, 152 miles of coastline. That's a huge domain. Is there any other city in the country that has so much parkland?
No, absolutely not. New York has the best and most wonderful parks, and it's been tremendous investment under Mayor Bloomberg and under First Deputy Mayor Patty Harris. It's been like a new revival of some of the Moses era in terms of investment in parks.
And the acreage of the parkland has been growing?
It's been growing. We've added parks in different areas and very creative opportunities, sometimes in terms of adding parks in Freshkills and Staten Island, in terms of former landfills. Other times it's working with the private sector and purchasing different pieces of property that then we add to the park system. It's really an amazing system. And
Governor's Island, is that part of the park system now?
it is a part of the parks city system. It's run independently as an independent nonprofit, but it is a city park.
Visitors to New York will often look at the high-rise buildings and they'll talk about, the feeling claustrophobic and all the concrete. But it seems to me that if you live in New York, you probably have more access to green and rustic areas than many people who live in less urban areas.
Absolutely true. One of the goals of the Bloomberg administration was to get everyone within 10 minutes of being able to be in an open space outdoors, and we've been doing that, and we have a huge increase in numbers of people able to walk 10 minutes and be in a park, be in a playground, and be outdoors and get recreation. Great for health and great for other things. But the other big part that people don't know, I think, is that 10,000 of our 29,000 acres are natural areas. So they're forests and marshes and wetlands and really great places where people can go, take their children, go on hikes and learn so much from our urban park rangers, learn at our nature centers. One of the things that I want to do with the Parks Department is to be able to have a whole campaign so that people understand what opportunities are out there for them and for their children, both in terms of learning and science and learning from the folks that work in our natural areas, and also having those healthy opportunities to get out, take a walk, and all kinds of things in our natural trails and so many of our beautiful parks. And they're all just a subway ride away.
Yeah, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and I remember a few years ago, I was visiting my mother down there, and I was looking for some place to walk. And there's almost no place to walk, and so I chose the big cemetery, because it was what was most like a park. But then they put me out of the cemetery because they didn't allow walking in the cemetery, so I got put out of the cemetery. But I think that often if you are in the middle of Central Park or if you're in Riverside Park, and I'm sure it's true of some of the parks in the other boroughs, you feel like you're in the country.
Absolutely. You go up to Pelham Bay Park, you go into Van Cortlandt Park, you can walk in forests and woodlands, and it's just an amazing experience for people, and people love that.
Right.
And I think it's important that people get out and understand that, and understand it's not just even about the playground down their corner, but understand you can get on the subway and go up to the Bronx and visit a whole new woods. And, you don't have to get in a car and drive off to another state to see so much of the beauty that we have.
Right. Now, since we were talking about numbers, how many trees are there in New York City Park? Do you have a tree count?
We do. We did a tree count. I think Commissioner Stern started the tree count some years back. So there's over 4 million trees. Unfortunately, in Sandy, we lost about 20,000 trees.
Did you? Okay.
On the streets and in the parks as well. But we have, under our Million Trees campaign that Mayor Bloomberg initiated, we plant trees each year. And we had planted 20,000 trees just prior to Sandy. So we're barely neck and neck with Mother Nature on this one.
Okay. Talking about Sandy, how were the city's park areas affected by that storm? And how are you addressing?
No, I just started at the agency as commissioner in August. And when Sandy hit, it was just amazing to me, the Parks Department employees, how they work, how hard they work, and what they do in terms of trying to protect not only our parks, but really the communities beyond. So for 4 days leading up to the storm, our staff was out working, actually people in the community were volunteering as well, putting up sandbags. Also, we were making sure that all of our vehicles were moved out of the low-lying areas. As you mentioned earlier, 152 miles of the coastline are parks, so it's a huge domain in terms of what areas we need to protect. So we did our best in terms of protecting our facilities, protecting our staff. Many of our staff did ride out the night in our marinas and other areas where they were trying to protect facilities. Amazing amount of work for 4 days leading up to the storm. Immediately after the storm, the Park Department employees were out assisting with the humanitarian efforts, assisting with food and other items like that, because obviously that relief and those efforts are really far more important than just the parkland. And then, after a few weeks, and we were able to really get back and focus on our parks. It's all been about trying to get them opened. 98% of our facilities are open now, but a number of our recreation centers, for example, were in Zone A, and they were closed. And in addition, we kept some closed longer even though they were repaired, because we used them as facilities for children's services, children to be able to use them for showers if they were in a facility that lacked those amenities during the time of Sandy and the weeks following Sandy. But now most of our facilities are open with the major exception of our beaches and boardwalks, and doing a tremendous amount of work right now out in the Rockaways, in Coney Island.
What happened? What kind
Island.
of damage did you have to the beaches?
So we lost about 70 feet of the beach. If you can imagine, this just, when you hear the number, it's just shocking to me, but when you go out and you see it, you see there's the boardwalk, and then where there used to be a long beach to walk out to the water, there now is very little beach in some of the areas. So we're working with the Army Corps to try to bring sand back to each of the different beaches. In the meantime, what we're working with the Department of Design and Construction to rebuild sections of the boardwalk to make sure that the beaches will be open. So all of the beaches will be open in all the boroughs this summer for Memorial Day, in time for Memorial Day. The boardwalks will be rebuilt much more slowly. It can't all be done in just a couple of months. So basically what we're doing is opening islands where we're going to have concessions, where we'll have restrooms, where we'll have our lifeguard stations, so that people will be able to get out and access the beaches.
And in Staten Island, what was the situation there?
Similarly, losing a tremendous amount of sand, losing the beach, and, and in terms of the boardwalk, some issues with the boardwalk as well. So in all of the areas, what we learned, for example, is the wooden boardwalk does not survive as well.
I was about to say, are they going to new boardwalks? Are they going to be wood? Are they going to be what's the material?
We use three. We have used wood in the past, which we haven't used. We don't use them anymore for the most part. We use recycled plastic lumber. People say RPL, recycled plastic lumber. Looks more like the wood, and then we also use concrete. So in our not scientific study, but in our observations post-Sandy, what we see is that the concrete survived, the concrete is there, and the concrete's stable. Interestingly, we stopped using wood not to protect the boardwalk, but to protect forests in other countries. It was all about global environment, which is why, as part of Plan MIC and looking at the issue of climate change, the mayor had said we should stop using tropical hardwoods in 2007. But now we know it's not only good for the world, it's also good for New York City, because we can't afford to rebuild boardwalks after every one of these major storms.
Right. Now, there has been criticism, I think the article was in the New York Times recently, that certain parks, like Central Park and maybe Riverside, get all of the attention and all of the private money. You have the Central Park Conservancy. I'm sure there's something for Riverside Park, which is one that's close to me. While other parks, maybe like Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, and Morningside Park, don't get that extra attention.
We're very grateful for all the conservancies. I think what's missed in some of those articles and some of those stories is that a lot of what a conservancy is all about is stewardship, and that stewardship can actually be dollars, and that's wonderful, and we love dollars, as everyone in any public agency would need, especially for our parks and our park system. The stewardship is also about volunteers, and it's about volunteers in many ways. We have volunteer gardeners in different communities. We have an amazing group called the Bronx River Alliance that has helped us do so much with the Bronx River. Each of those conservancies do a tremendous amount of work for the Parks Department, and we're very appreciative of that. And while the dollars are important, as I say, it's time, talent, and treasure, and the dollars are good, but it's the time and talent is really also important. And every dollar that someone gives to any of our conservancies, be it Prospect Park or Riverside Park, as you mentioned, or Central Park, is great because it enables us to keep these parks wonderfully open. And Central Park, the numbers of people that come through the park, 40 million visitors a year, it's just tremendous, the number of people.
40 million. Is it the most used park in the city?
I think it's the most used park in the world.
Really?
Yeah, 40 million in terms of it. So just think about that upkeep and that maintenance. So it's a city park, and we put money in it from the city budget, and well, we should. But it's also great to be able to keep it in the condition it's in with those 40 million visitors by having the tremendous amount of money, such as the gift from John Paulson, which is it's an asset. For me, I think I look at it differently. I guess maybe I'm more of a half glass full type person, but it brings parks into something where I think people think of as universities or hospitals or other kinds of cultural institutions where they're great places to give money to. People don't necessarily think of parks that way, but we are a huge and important part of any city, and for New York City in particular, our park system. So it's great. I think the Paulson gift raised people's attention to the fact that we could use dollars as well.
Right.
And it's important for our parks to have private dollars. And I think that raised the bar for people to think about gifts, important as our libraries, of course, are, and our medical institutions and our universities, parks and open space are tremendously important.
How much does
also.
it cost now to adopt a Central Park bench?
I think it's $7,500.
Okay, okay. I love to read the plates.
Yes, they're
So-
beautiful. But you can get one in Fort Tryon Park for $2,500.
Oh, well,
There you go.
and shop around.
Yes, indeed, depending on what your park is.
According to a Wall Street Journal article, has been an increase in crimes in Central Park. At least there was. This story was there was an increase in 2010 compared to the year before. And I know, like last year, I think it was in November. It was shocking to hear about the rape of a woman who was in her 70s in Central Park in daylight. Is the trend in crime, has the crime been trending upward in the park? And if
Really
so, what's
not.
been-
I think it's more a question of, it's in broad daylight, a woman in the park. It's, it's those kinds of situations that are just really terrible that come to light, that are there, that are happening.
Right.
But for the real thing is the park system in terms of crime is really, the crime isn't really increasing. I mean, we work very closely with NYPD on these issues. I mean, there are issues of, sometimes cell phones, which is a problem throughout the city and throughout also the transit system.
What's the problem with cell phones, other than just being a pain in the neck?
No, being taken. So I think that, and when
Oh,
people
I
say the
see.
crime is up, a lot of it is around that. And it's sort of hard to distinguish at times, is it taken from me? Was it taken because I left it on the bench
Yeah.
while my child was playing in Randall's Island Park? So, we work out these things with PD, but they're really, the crime is not increasing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I really feel it's important for people to understand that, because I think that engendering fear in people about using the parks brings us back to the 1970s and a time when people were concerned and worried about going into parks. And I think it's important for people to know our parks are safe, and we really do a lot in terms to make sure that they are. We work closely with NYPD. We have our own Parks Enforcement Patrol that works with us in the parks throughout the city.
We're going to take a short break. Then we'll be back with more with Veronica White, the city's Commissioner of Parks and Recreation.
Did you know CUNY leads the way for students with disabilities?
CUNY Leads means linking employment, academics, and disability services. If you're a CUNY student with a visible or invisible disability, the City University of New York offers eligible students free career development and placement services. To find out if you qualify, visit cuny.edu/CUNYLeads. CUNY Leads, to the career I always wanted.
Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Veronica White, the city's Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. I think most New Yorkers know about the treasures of Central Park, whether it's the Delacorte Theater, or whether it's the Ramble, or the Boat Basin, or whatever. What are some of the city's park treasures, not necessarily Central Park, but park treasures that are less well known that you'd like people to know about?
Yeah, I'd love people to know more about Fresh Kills Park. It's amazing.
Which one?
Fresh Kills Park
Oh,
on Staten
okay.
Island.
Okay.
And it's an amazing park that we're opening bit by bit and doing bits and pieces of, as we get capital dollars and as we grow the park. So just outside of Fresh Kills, there's a beautiful park that we renovated called Shmuel Park, which is an older park. We're going to be open soccer fields on another side of called Al Hollow Fields just next month. And in addition, within is going to be a huge area for natural habitat for people to see. We have deer there at this point now. This was formerly a city landfill. So we open the park at different times now, for example, for kayaking. And we have these, what we call sneak peeks at Fresh Kills, and bring people from the community out, but people from all over come out. They go to Staten Island and they see what was formerly, a negative blight on the community is now going to be a beautiful, beautiful park. So that's the kind of
So
opportunity.
is it a new park, or has it been?
It's a new park that we're creating, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's very large and it's very, very nice. And I think that that's something really, really, really terrific that people should know about.
And that's going to be the big park for the borough.
Well, Staten Island is truly a borough of parks. So we have the whole Greenbelt system, and we have Clove Lakes Park, which is where our offices are out there. And Staten Island is an area where we're able to do more acquisition because of some land that is still available and undeveloped. And it's a borough that the elected officials on Staten Island, and particularly Borough President Molinaro, have been particularly helpful to us in making sure that we can acquire certain private properties. For example, there's some camps out there that might be better served at being part of the park system, as opposed to being developed for housing, which is probably not the best use for what the community would want. So we're working very closely on different acquisitions with different groups on Staten Island to add even more acreage to the park system. It's very important for New York City to have that green space, that open space, not only for the environment, but also for families to have an opportunity to be able to go within their own neighborhood, to get out and about, to bike, to stroll, to play sports.
Right. Now you live on the Upper West Side. Where do you take visitors to the city?
All over the city when they come in. My sister lives in France, and I have a lot of relatives in France, so people are always coming to my house and staying with me, and I take them, and I like to get them out of Manhattan and into other boroughs as well, because oftentimes, as you said before, people know about that. Back to Bay Ridge, for example, where I'm from, beautiful park along Shore Road. It's where I learned to ride a bike as a child, and it's a beautiful park system as well. I'd like to get people into the Botanical Gardens, for example. And
in the Bronx,
and in Brooklyn as well. Prospect Park, which people, a lot of New Yorkers do get to it, but out-of-towners don't get to Prospect Park as often as I think. Fort Tryon Park is a favorite of mine. It's just such a beautiful natural setting, and up there, and you look over at the Palisades, and then you get the twofer because you get to go to the cloisters at the same time. So try to schedule things so that people can get out and see our parks, and then other opportunities in the different neighborhoods and communities beyond just the central area of Manhattan.
Okay. One big change in the city over the last, say, 15 years or so has been the development of the waterfront so that New Yorkers actually have access to it. I am fortunate enough to live near Hudson River Park, and I ride riding my bike along the river is my favorite thing to do. Are there further plans to claim more of the waterfront for public usage?
Really, I think a goal of the city is that in all the boroughs we should be able to, the waterfront should be accessible, and there should be greenways so that people can get on a bike or take a walk or a stroll across and through the waterfronts. So we've made a lot of headway in different boroughs, but we have a lot more work to do in that area in terms of some of the other boroughs. But people could not have imagined even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that you could get in your get in a car in a bike at Battery Park and go all the way up the way you can do now all around. The goal would be to be able to go all the way around the island of Manhattan. But similarly in the Bronx and Brooklyn and in Queens, people really would like to have access to the waterfront. It's a great opportunity for families, and we're working very closely with different agencies in the city, as well as community boards, to figure out exactly how we can make more of that area part of the park system.
The east side along the river, along the east, is far less developed than the west side. I'm wondering why that is, or if there are plans for the East River.
There are plans, and we're working with a number of city agencies, and particularly the Economic Development Corporation, to create more parkland on the east side as well.
I know. Now, is South Street Seaport part of your domain, or is that not?
Well, it's not. It's separate. The South Street Seaport. Yes, we do have a park in there, but for the most part, it's not under the domain of the Parks Department.
Okay. When I bike past or through the parks on the west side, I see so many kinds of activities going on. Arts classes for kids, story and song hours for kids, movies in the park, dance classes, tennis, of course, ice skating, kayaking, fishing. But there are even more other park department sponsored activities, I understand. Computer classes for teenagers, activities for seniors. Tell me about some of those.
We have an amazing recreation center throughout the city, and we also have an amazing recreation center leader, Anika Holder, who basically does so much in trying to get so much of our programming out of doors, because we find people prefer and enjoy being out of doors as well. So we have both free programming in parks through our public programs, whether it be our urban park rangers or our recreation center divisions. Just a few weeks ago when it snowed, all of our recreation center folks were out in parks throughout the city. We bring sleds for children that don't have sleds. We offer hot chocolate. People just absolutely love it. And I was up at 103rd Street and Riverside Park for it, but my team was out in parks throughout the 5 boroughs and engaging people and having fun, and bringing our sleds along so that children have an opportunity to do these things. But we have everything. It's from storytelling to dance to all kinds of classes, and people love it. They love being able to exercise outdoors, and they love getting together in those kinds of communities. And if you go into any park, it's just amazing the degree of programs we have that are available free of charge to people.
What other areas of the city are in need of more parks and recreation facilities?
And many areas are. What we've tried to do is take advantage of opportunity as they strike. So, for example, the High Bridge it is a part of the park system. It's been closed for many years, I think some 40 years.
You have to tell us what the High Bridge is.
So it's as you drive up, you see it from the Harlem River Drive. You can see this beautiful bridge that looks like a Roman aqueduct, and that's how it was designed, and it was originally part of the water system. So connecting the communities from Manhattan, from the High Bridge community in Manhattan over to High Bridge in the Bronx communities, they really had no access between the two communities for many, many years. So we recently just started construction, and it'll enable people from the Bronx to be able to go over and use our Manhattan High Bridge Center, which has facilities and has a pool, And it's really a wonderful opportunity for people to be able to exercise while crossing the bridge rather than worrying about public transportation or getting in a car, and also be able to connect these communities together in a way. So it's looking at some of our facilities that have been either closed for years or areas where we can bring in more open space to the parkland and trying to work with the communities to see how we can get that open. So we have lots of planning sessions. So our partnership with Parks worked very closely with communities in both boroughs to think about what we would do and how we would get this high bridge opened. And I think it was a dream that now you go up and you see that the construction's actually happening, and it'll be open next year, and it's a really, really beautiful park.
Are there any parks that are underused? I find it hard to believe there would be any.
So lots of parks. We could get more people out in certain areas. That's definitely true. And we try to make sure we bring those opportunities. So you talk about riding your bike around. What we do is we have on our Parks Department website lots of opportunities through our Recreation Division and through all of our boroughs to get people out for walks, for tours to our historic homes, which are many of them are in our parks, as well as to bike rides, and all kinds of exploring with our folks from our Natural Resources group. We have a whole really science division within the agency, a little known fact, and basically people that know so much about nature, that very, very helpful for young children, much more. Many children like being outside and learning rather than being in the classroom and learning.
Right.
It's a wonderful opportunity for parents to bring their children to our nature centers, which I think we could have many more children from different communities out. So I encourage people to look at our websites, and in particular look at some of the opportunities that our urban park rangers provide and then our nature centers provide, and bring their children out to learn so much, because I think hands-on learning on site is just so much more exciting and so much easier to learn than for children. So I think that's really great opportunities.
Now the High Line, is that under your purview?
Yes, it is. It's a public park.
Is it finished now, or is there still more?
Still more to come. We're just starting the third phase of the High Line right now.
Okay, which is going to go from where to where?
It's going to go up to as far as 34th Street. So it'll be the rest of the elevated rail yard.
Okay,
So,
okay. Where does it end now?
in the 20s, and it'll go.
And it's going to go to 34th
yeah,
Street?
Yeah.
Okay. You have any idea of how many people are using it? It seems like a lot.
It's a lot. It's in the millions. It's amazing, as you see, it sounds like you're out and about in New York all the time, so you can see when you go there how crowded it is.
Did you call it a huge success?
It's an amazing success, and the Friends of the High Line are to be congratulated on all the work they've done together with City Planning Commissioner Amanda Burden and the Parks Department in building this wonderful park, and it's been a great public-private partnership, and it will continue to be.
Are other cities copying anything like it, to your knowledge?
You know, other cities come all the time to look at it because the opportunity and to think about what it is that they could do with their rails, and whether they should be turned into trails or into parks or into something akin to the High Line. So we have lots of folks from other cities coming and looking at our parks, whether it's coming look at Brooklyn Bridge Park or the High Line or Governor's Island, and looking at what we're doing, because we are the city of parks.
We've got about 2 minutes left. What are your priorities going forward?
One of the things we're doing is we're starting what I'm calling a conservation corps, and it's to bring a new generation of people into the Parks Department. So we're going to be hiring new college graduates, and we're going to be starting in September, and it's an opportunity for people to come in, work in the Parks Department, learn about environmental issues, and really hopefully be part of the city workforce going forward.
Would these be college level? What?
These would be college graduates.
Okay.
And we're going to bring them in, and be a great opportunity for them to either have a career in the Parks Department, or maybe they decide that they would like to go to forestry school afterwards, when they learn a lot about what it is that we do, and to really awaken more young people to the environment and to the issues of climate change, and realizing that the park system is a huge part and an environmental resource for New York City.
I know one thing that most New Yorkers are familiar with are they used to be called the WEP workers, the welfare recipients who were brought in to work in the parks as in return for their welfare checks, and you'd see them in their sweatshirts or t-shirts in the park. Is that program still going on?
We do still have that program, and there are people in it. And we also have a program called the Parks Opportunity Program, which is a huge success. I come from a background in anti-poverty work before starting at the Parks Department. It's the most successful program for workforce development. So we bring in people that were on welfare. Basically, they come into the agency and they're paid. And at the end of the day, what we hope for them is that if they need an educational credential, we help them get that GED, and we help them get into a permanent full-time job. Some of them stay with us
At the Parks
Department, some in the Parks Department, and some elsewhere.
Okay.
So the idea is to build up their resume, to get them the experience and the credentials they need to get them a job.
And how many people are in that program?
At any given moment, there's between 1,500 and 2,200.
Okay.
We work closely with the Human Resources Administration here in the city, and it's a great program. I met a gardener up in Crotona Park who had started in that program, graduated and through the program, and has been at the Parks Department for a number of years, and it's a really wonderful opportunity for people.
It's always great to see them, because you figure it's doing something for them, and you're always happy to see people who are doing things for the parks. So it's
And-
sort of like a
and
win-win. It
totally
appears to
is.
be.
And people love to work outdoors, and I
Yeah.
think people in the Parks Department are very happy. It's a great thing because you're outside. It's physically therapeutic, and people recognize that, but it's also, it's therapeutic for all of us when we're outside and enjoying our work. And I think people come in and they work at the Parks Department. We'd love to be able to employ everybody from our POP program. Unfortunately, we can't, but we enable them to have success elsewhere as well by giving them the job training and helping get GEDs and other credentials for them.
Okay. Well, I've certainly learned a lot about the parks, the New York City Parks Kingdom today.
Thank you. Thank you. It is quite a kingdom.
We're out of time, but I want to thank Veronica White, the New York City Parks and Recreation Commissioner, for joining me today. If you want to learn about programs and events in your area, go to the comprehensive website at nyc.gov/parks. For the City University of New York and One to One, I'm Sheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.